It's getting cold and rainy outside, and that means that the season has come to read cozy and kind books. So here is the list of my favorite cozy books for early fall. Hi everyone, this is Mary, you're in Mary Reads. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. So let's talk about those cozy kind books that would work perfectly for the beginning of fall when it's already getting chilly, but you still want to kind of prolong that summer warmth and it's too early to read Halloween October books, but you already want something that you can read while drinking a cup of tea, curled up in a blanket. The first two books are both Frederick Buckman. The first one is A Man Called Uwe, and the second one is Britt Marie Was Here. So A Man Called Uwe you have probably all read or heard about, or maybe even seen a movie. This is a story about an old man whose wife passed away and he lives alone. There is no happiness in his life, so he's thinking continuously about ending his life. And he has a plan, he's fully ready, he knows exactly what he needs to do. But suddenly this young family with kids moves in and his life turns 180 degrees. This is a very kind story with some sad parts in it, which is completely normal because that's how life is. And it's so cozy and warm at the same time. I adored this book. I read it, I think, even in one of my vlogs. So if you haven't seen it and you're considering reading this book, feel free to open it and see my review. But this was such a wonderful read, and I think it would work perfectly well with early September. And the second book that is also by Frederick Buckman is Britt Marie Was Here. This book I found a little bit less warm, though still in that area. This is a story about an old woman, not even that old. She's, I think, in her 50s, but she already has kids. She has a husband. She was a stay-at-home mom her whole life. She took care of kids. She took care of the house. She lives by a certain schedule. And then many years, like 25 years after she married her husband, he's telling her that actually, well, he is not interested in her anymore. She is not pretty, she is not fun, she lives by a certain schedule, this is kind of boring, that's not what he wants. So she goes on this little adventure of rediscovering herself, finding what she likes doing, and she's trying to find a job, and this job leads her to this very small town that is not doing well. People are leaving it and it's kind of dying slowly, and she meets these people who still live there, the kids who it seems like don't have future, and they change her life and she changes their life. I enjoyed the story a lot. I didn't enjoy it as much as A Man Called Uwe, but it was still very cozy and enjoyable, especially considering that the main character was a woman, and I could kind of, I can't say relate, but those were the thoughts that I had in my head at some point. Like, what if I stay at home with kids and my husband provides for us and I don't have a job and I don't have any experience? And what if at some point I will need a job? So how is it gonna go? And where would I be? What would I do? And would I still be, you know, interesting and fun? Or will I fully turn into this Britt Marie version where she's so concentrated on everything being perfect, everything being done by a certain schedule? So how would my life be? And I could kind of relate a little bit more to Britt Marie, but A Man Called Uwe I felt was a little bit warmer. And I think you can also take other Frederick Buckman's books. There are two more that I think would be good for this list. I haven't read them yet, so I'm not going to include them. The only thing that I will recommend, do not take Beartown series, because that is going to break your heart. That is a more hardcore drama, and that is going to be a tough read. If you're ready for that, then yes, but it's definitely not a cozy book for September. Next, we have Bertram Hotel by Agatha Christie. I just couldn't not include Agatha Christie because I love her so much, and I think Bertram Hotel is this one mystery novel that would work perfectly for September. So this is a Miss Marple mystery, and it is set in a hotel. And what's more, this hotel is very much old style. So imagine Miss Marple being pretty old in what, 1950s, 60s, and she remembers going to this hotel when she was a little girl, and there were these certain standards, and the food was truly, genuinely English, and the service was on top of things, and the rooms were amazing. And as an old woman, she goes there for the same experience, and that's what she gets. And of course, there is a mystery. Of course, there is a murder. But just this atmosphere of an upscale old English hotel with certain pastries and jams and butter. I'm talking about it and saliva is forming in my mouth because I haven't had dinner yet, and I'm thinking about all those foods that Agatha Christie described in this novel. But this would be such a wonderful read for early September with a cup of tea or coffee. I would highly recommend it, and it is a good read. It's not a book that you would read and forget the next day. And since we are on the topic of hotels, the next book that I want to recommend is Hotel by Arthur Haley. I read this novel and absolutely loved it. So in this novel, you have a lot of different plot lines. The big one is the hotel's plot line. The hotel is facing financial difficulties, and they need to figure out a way to survive, to stay afloat and not close. And then you have issues of certain guests or employees of the hotel. For example, there is a couple that is clearly trying to hide something. And then you have a hotel's employee who was working and was very happy to get this job at a hotel. But when he was supposed to be on duty, he was with a lady at the time when both him and her were married. And of course, this has consequences. So you will, first of all, get the insight on how the hotel operates, which I find absolutely fascinating. And you will also get into these smaller plot lines, which were extremely engaging and entertaining. So I would highly recommend this specific novel by Arthur Haley. He has other ones like Airport, and then there is one about journalists, which I also really enjoyed reading because I studied journalism and I felt like, oh, well, this was a book that was written for me. And I think there's also one about a hospital that I started reading but never finished. But this particular one, Hotel, would be absolutely perfect. The next two books are a little bit more lighthearted. The first one is Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers by Jess Sutanto, or Jessie Sutanto. I am not sure how to pronounce her name correctly, but she has another series of books which is also very popular, something like A is for Aunties or something like that. So it's about these Asian aunts, and I assume they're doing something. I will probably read this series later. But the first book that I've read by this author is Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers. There are two parts. I've only read the first one so far, and it was an absolute blast. It's such a great book for late August, early fall, because it's so nice. It's a mystery novel, but the mystery is not as important here. Mostly it's the characters. Our main character is this old woman, Vera Wong. She owns a tea house and she is Chinese. And the author is also Chinese American, so she knows very well the cultural aspects and some of these stereotypes that we imagine when we think about Asian parents, like they make their kids study, they pay a lot of attention to making everything go by a certain order, making sure that they preserve the culture in like the food or the art or how they dress. This is all there. And Vera Wang has such a distinct character, which was absolutely hilarious and absolutely wonderful. I adored this book. So the premise of the book is Vera Wang owns a tea house. She lives alone. Her husband passed away. Her son is in his 30s, so he is a lawyer at some very prestigious firm, and he doesn't see his mom very often. And they also can't connect as much just because she keeps telling him that, oh, you need to find a girlfriend. Oh, you need to wake up at 4:30 in the morning so that you can enjoy the day because your body lives better when you wake up early and go to bed early. And he's kind of done. He doesn't like that. He had enough. And she's pretty lonely. She doesn't have a lot of customers in her tea shop. And then one day she wakes up and sees that there is a body in her tea house. And of course, she is excited because nothing like this has ever happened to her. So she's hoping that this is murder. But police doesn't pay a lot of attention to the case. And she decides to take everything into her own hands and starts investigating. We will have five, I think, if I'm not mistaken, 5 points of views of 4 suspects that Vera Wang has and then her own. And I thought that it would be hard to follow, but it's actually not. So this was really, really nice. And what I loved about this book is that every character is very distinct. They're all Asian, just from different countries. They all have their own professions, their own motives, their own interests. And I just thought that it was such a nice book to read. I don't know if the second book will have the same characters, but I will try it and will give you a review of the second book as soon as I'm done reading it. The next book, also super light and easy to read, is Tea House on Mulberry Street by Sharon Owens. I would say that this book is like 1, maybe 2-day read. It also has multiple points of views of different people. There is one young artist who is in love with Nicolas Cage, and she keeps sending him letters hoping that he will respond, and at the same time trying to promote her art and make money. There is this woman who has 2 sons. She's kind of like Britt Marie from Frederick Buckman's book. She took care of kids, she took care of the house, and at some point her husband tells her that he is tired of her and he doesn't want to have anything to do with her, and actually he has a lover who he wants to be with permanently. So she's going through this crisis. Then we have a married couple who own the tea house, and the wife wants something new. The wife wants everything to look pretty in the tea house. The wife wants the menu to change, but her husband is like, no, we need to save all of the money possible. So I'm not buying you gifts. I'm not paying too much attention to you. I'm not paying too much attention to what you want to do with the tea house. Everything is being saved, and how they get through their crises. Then there is a POV of 2 sisters who never got married, and they lived together, and they always wanted to see the queen. And I just think all of those characters were so hilarious, and all of their problems looked kind of small when you're reading it, but when you have those problems in real life, of course they feel huge, and they are huge. But when you read this book that is written in this very nice and light and cozy language, it feels like everything is going to be okay. No matter what problems they're facing, everything is going to be okay. So this is a very, very light read, but I think you can enjoy it with a cup of tea. You will definitely enjoy this book. It's a really nice, relaxing read for 1 or 2 evenings. Next, if you want to read something a little bit more fantastical, magical, Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman, absolutely wonderful. I loved it so much. The main character saves this girl whose name is Dor, and somehow this makes him end up in the under London that exists under regular London. And he has to help Dor run away from these 2 assassins that are after her. And also they have to find this angel who will be able to permanently save Dor from those assassins. And this world has its own rules. Very weird creatures live there. There is this very weird hierarchy that in regular London would not exist. And what's more interesting is that with getting immersed into this under London, the main character is losing his life in regular London, so he's basically slowly becoming invisible, which is also a very curious plot twist. So I would highly recommend this book. This is the first one that I've read by Neil Gaiman, and I think it's going to be so perfect for the fall. Even if you are older, you don't have to be a teenager to enjoy this book. Even if you're older, you're most likely going to like it. The next book I want to recommend is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I enjoyed this book a lot. It was a little bit weird. I've never read anything like that before, but it's basically a story about two illusionists who decide to train two protégés. Each one of them has one protégé. And then these protégés are going to have a magical battle. And whose protégé wins will win this competition and will show that they're actually a better illusionist or a magician. But the one rule they have is that these protégés are not allowed to know the identities of each other. So each one of them doesn't know who they are playing against. And this is such a cool concept, and there is so much magic in this and so much atmosphere of celebration of this circus, because people love this circus. Nobody knows where it's going to end up, and people travel after this circus. So it appears in London one day, people travel to London. In 3 weeks, it moves to Tokyo, and people go to Tokyo to see it. And then in a month, it appears in Moscow, and everybody goes to Moscow to see it. So it's so good that people travel. And when people get there, their life is just absolutely changed, because they're like, oh my God, I've never seen anything like this before. And they have these caramelized apples, and they have this popcorn, and they have the hot cocoa that is so wonderful. They've never tried anything like this before. And every stand with every different magician or an acrobat or whatever they want to see changes every time, and there is always something new to see. So this is such a great atmosphere of celebration, of magic, and there is a love story. So this is just an absolute great read for early fall. And the last book for today, or rather a series of books, is Flavia de Lu's Mysteries. This is a series about a little girl. Well, she's like 10, I think, or 12. And she grows throughout the series, obviously. And the story is set in 1950s, I think Britain, if I'm not mistaken. The author is Canadian, but I think the book is set in Britain. And she's the youngest of 3 daughters. They live with her dad in their mansion. Their mom disappeared during the war. Nobody knows where she is or what's with her. They assume that she's dead, but they don't know for sure. And the house, because it's right after the war, there's no work. A lot of it was ruined. So this house that was flourishing before the war is now slowly dying. And she's kind of in this transitional period of what they had before the war and what they have after the war. And she's a kid, and she's trying to process everything that's happening. And in every book, there is a murder that she is solving. And you could say, oh, well, the main character is 12 years old, so it has to be a book for kids. But it's not. It's really not. The way the war and the consequences of war are described, the cases themselves are pretty nasty. It's definitely not for kids. And I think as adults we would be able to appreciate it more. I don't remember how many books there are. I think it's like 10 or 12. I got through, I think, 6 of them. I want to continue the series. It's just my mother-in-law only had those, so I took those and then paused because I didn't have any books of my own. So this is a really nice series to start in the fall, and I really think that this atmosphere of 1950s England right after the war, the world is trying to get back to normal. It's such a fall atmosphere, and it's not a series that you will easily forget. These were all of my recommendations. I really hope you're able to find something to read this September. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel not to miss any future videos. And also let me know what books you would recommend reading in September. Thank you for staying with me, and I hope to see you soon. Bye bye.